Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As you're coming in the webinar room, we want to welcome you. My name is Marcia Butler. I am the webinar director at Advice Chaser. Before we introduce our guests and get started, I need to do a bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting, are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. We're thrilled to bring you today's educational presentation. Attendees are muted, but we do encourage you to ask questions using the chat box, and the presenter will answer those questions during or after the webinar today as appropriate. If you ask a question in the chat box, go ahead and leave your phone number as well. And if we can't get to your question during this event, we'll make sure someone reaches out to you after today's event. And I do need to turn that functionality on. So that is on now. Again, we want this experience to be as educational as possible, so please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. I'd love to introduce you to our presenter today. J.R. Guerreri is a certified financial planning practitioner that utilizes a unique approach and methodology called financial life planning. Life planning connects the dots between our financial realities and the lives we long to live. This method is based on the premise that advisors should first discover a client's most essential goals in life before formulating a financial plan, so a client's finances fully support those goals. As a lifelong learner, musician, and athlete, JR holds a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, trains Muay Thai, and has been playing the guitar for over 30 years. He actively performs and writes music in his band. And JR, we're excited to have you here, and I'm going to turn over the time to you.
All right, thank you. Great subject matter. Building generational wealth is an opportunity to look at a larger picture, like a 30,000 foot view of some basic fundamental activities that you want to participate in to build wealth over your life and over your future family's life. So yeah, that's kind of the subject matter. The first step into building wealth is simple, rather challenging. Okay. It is managing your cash flow. The fuel for the engine that will drive wealth building is cash flow. If the cash flow is negative, there will be very little progressing. If the cash flow is positive, you'll have an excellent outcome. One of the feeds, like a Twitter feed, I follow a lot of financial professionals. One world is, this could be probably easy understood, is the medical world, right? People who become from from student to doctor. Well, there's something called it's your residency. Your residency is after you complete, I'm not doing this exactly correct, but after you complete medical school, you actually are like a doctor in training inside of a hospital, and they pay them very little amount of money. So the doctors have to learn to survive off of very little means. And then all of a sudden they get the final, you're good to go, you're now a doctor and can practice, and they get these huge jumps in income. Well, one of the advice that you get as a doctor who just became a professional and can practice, they say, live like you're still a resident, financially speaking, and earn your income as a doctor, and you will become wealthy, right? So that is like, it's across the board. This is one of the most important things. Debt is fine. Debt is not evil. Debt is a necessary thing we have to use. It's a tool, but it has to be done responsibly, right? And this is a great line. Don't overlook small opportunities to redirect an unnecessary expense into savings. So like me and Marcia were talking about this before, right? Like hold back, like really like meditate in the moment. Do I really need to buy this thing, or can it hold off? And if you can learn how to train yourself, this is weird human desire that overcomes everyone, myself included. I deal in this stuff all day long. I teach people not to be like this. And then all of a sudden I see that shiny new thing and I get possessed. It's like you get possessed. You go, oh, I have to have this. If you can learn to meditate that thought away, I mean, it will transform your finances. Look, and then look, when you're wealthy, buy all the stuff you want. Right? Just let's get there first. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I'm a financial professional. It's in my best interest to tell you that you should hire one. But let's be honest, do you really have to hire one? No, not at all. This stuff is out there in the world, available to you. You've heard of Amazon. They were a book selling company, and they've written thousands of books on financial management. You can do your homework. It goes beyond a Google search though, right? Like don't just do a Google search and go, okay, let's do an estate plan. No, it's not that simple, but the information's out there. I mean, if I get a complicated tax situation, I Google it. I don't have like some magic, financial planners textbook that they exist and I have access to them, but I'll just Google the answer and some really smart person will write an article on it. And it's just good enough. I mean, so you don't need a professional, but there's something magical about a professional, which I'm going to get to in a second. I'm going to go over some of these things and I want to talk about that. So, how do you know where you are when you're going? Yeah, if you don't put a plan together, it gets too jumbled up inside your head, right? All the things you need to do is sit inside your head and there's no system in place to getting you where you need to go. All right, there's a lot of steps of financial well-being, right? It's setting a goal. It's protecting yourself from all the things that could go wrong, right? It's the actual aspect of investing is complicated. I mean, you have people who go to get PhDs in the world of economics to learn how, and then there's classwork after the PhD. It's called a CFA, just to figure out how to maneuver through the stock world, right? We call them CFAs. I mean, it's and they can't predict the future, right? After all that schooling, right? It's complicated. Estate plan, real estate planning. Right? Who do you want to talk to about buying real estate? Estate planning is another complicated aspect of it. And then the big one, let's not forget the taxes, right? I promise you, if you don't have a tax plan, you are giving away money to the government unnecessarily. I'm not talking about creative accounting or legal, it's anything. No, it's just you can give away money unnecessarily and you don't want to do that. Okay. Behavioral coaching is a thing. I think this is one of the most important. I call it the accountability buddy. The accountability buddy in financial planning it's one of the most powerful aspects of it, right? If someone's holding you accountable to do the things you say you're going to do, the probability of you achieving that goal rises. It's just the way the system works. You're getting checkups along the way. Yes, you have to have a checkup every 6 months to a year. I tell my clients, if you don't call me in 3 months, you're getting an email from me. So that's the way I approach it. And it teaches you, a financial professional can teach you how to communicate that to the other members of your family, which is really important. Okay, next slide. Okay, so it says it right there in the title, prioritize wealth building. And I found that like if it's the first one. If you make it automatic, it will happen. If you leave it up to yourself, you're going to forget. And so the reason why there's trillions of dollars in the world of retirement plans and 401k companies is because they take it out of your paycheck before you even get a chance to look at it. I mean, that is because of automation. The Wall Street knows that if they automatically take it out of your check, the money will be there. So they do that on purpose. And so you have to make it automatic. I mean, there are your bank accounts you could log in and automatically send to a savings account every month. You could just do that, right? You can automatically send money to a non-retirement investment account. There are new technologies that are like groundbreaking that are coming out where this stuff is going to be all automated, right? You don't even have to do it anymore. It's just going to be automated. It's going to be fantastic. I've already sat down and watched a lot of new financial products on the market to get people to build wealth over time automatically. They don't even have to think about it. Delayed gratification is a word that I want people to associate with, like delayed gratification. Building wealth requires patience. You need patience. Do not get inundated with the ridiculousness of markets on a daily basis, right? Because it's not going to serve you. Stocks take a long time to grow, right? Bonds are slow moving. Real estate, long time it takes for these things to grow. You have to let them do their thing. But what's nice about this slide and the point of it is, notice it just doesn't say invest in the one thing, right? It doesn't say just stocks and bonds in my 401k, right? It doesn't say just invest in real estate. Real estate's the best and it's proven itself over the years. No, there's more things than that. There's alternatives. There's other opportunities in your personal business, in your career, there's new products being, I can't say the word, but it starts with a C, ends in an O, right? Like that thing, right? And so it's like, there are products that are coming on that really can give you great opportunities, and you want to be in them all. And the reason why you want to be in them all, and to a certain degree, right? It's gold and silver, is because they perform their best at different times and they perform their worst at different times, right? So stock market goes down, real estate goes down typically at the same time. What looks amazing? My gold, my bonds, my checking savings account, my insurance product, right? And then the flip side goes in the other direction. All of a sudden the stock market's cranking up, real estate market's cranking up, and your gold and silver doesn't look that good, right? It's like, but if you can utilize those tools when they look the best to your advantage, that's how you build wealth over time, being strategic. So I talk a lot about that and that with people. Seek professional advice. I'll go one more back to that slide. Seek professional advice in each individual area. If you don't know it, don't just throw your money at it. You can lose a lot of money in real estate, I promise you, right? So get a professional that can walk, an expert in that field. Anything from stocks and bonds to all the things out there. And there's the patience thing again. Sorry, next slide. Okay, this is interesting. I believe that the conversation of money should be free-flowing. There's a weird vibration in our country anyway, that wants to hide their wealth. They want to hide the conversation. They don't want anyone to know what their income is. They don't want to know any of this. The more free-flowing you are with information, the more you're going to learn, right? It is a taboo subject in many families. Families should be clear on what is going on. That doesn't mean you just go running around, with your, W-2 form stuck to your back, right? That's not what I'm talking about. And if you're going to communicate a lot about money, that money better be protected, right? It should be in trusts. It should be insured. It should be protected. But if it is, you could walk up to somebody who has, if you can speak freely with someone about their financial matters, right? They're going to teach you things that you didn't know, a tax thing, right? A saving a fee thing, right? There's a lot of ways, but you have to communicate. And goals change. Your financial and your life and your finances will change along the way. I mean, it's so interesting to me how like people will put a plan together and they go, yeah, I'll never need this guy JR again. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, I'm getting a phone call. It's like, we're having a baby, or it's like, we bought a new house. It's like, I need you again. Of course. It's like, that's just what happens. And it's a whole new set of circumstances. The world is always evolving. I mean, like in the early 2000s to say like we're going to have 10% inflation. You would go, no, that's not possible. There we are. It's like the world changes. So yeah, and you need a team. You need a team of people to be successful in building generational wealth. Teams. Now it helps to have a quarterback, right? Like a point person. And it doesn't have to be the financial professional. Typically it is. It could be a lawyer, it could be a CPA, but it could be somebody that's just very knowledgeable about money. But you do want a person who knows how to manage all the people, the cast of characters. And there's a lot of cast of characters in the world of money. Okay, next slide. I mean, me and Marche were talking about this before. Building your career is one of the most powerful things, one of the almost like guaranteed ways of growing your wealth over time. If you invest in yourself, you're really increasing the chances of being wealthy over time. You can go the route, which I've done. Like I've been down the route of formal education. And I'll tell you, there's some really powerful aspects of formal education, but there's definitely cons of formal education, right? So you have to think about those. They're not cheap, right? Let's just be honest. They're probably rather expensive, and expensive in the sake of, well, I'll probably have to pay some interest over a student loan over time, right? But do I get something in return, right? We want to weigh that out. I mean, there are such great seminars and workshops out there to teach people about money. Like I said, we were talking about this before, books and articles, networking. I mean, there are events that go on, like let's say, if you in New York City all the time on different wealth building events all around. Now you gotta take events with a grain of salt, right? I mean, remember, the person who's hosting an event is probably getting paid a lot of money to host the event, right? Let's be honest. And they're probably there to sell you something, right? But that doesn't mean that there's not, value there. One of the things that one of my trainers, one of my coaches back in the day, more of a career coach rather than like a financial coach, he would say, look, I go to these events, these big events for one thing, but that one thing is gold. And so, you might not get, 3 days of value on some of these events, but it's that one thing that you needed to transform your business or transform your personal life. Okay, entrepreneurship. This is huge. So people who take the risk of building their own business tend to really build wealth over time. It's risky, but the rewards are fantastic because you get to control these things. You get to enjoy them, right? You get to have income streams, capital appreciations, a lot of advantages to being your own business owner. Tax benefits, like our tax system is designed to benefit the entrepreneur. That's what it's benefit for. It's not designed to benefit those of us who work for institutions, right, and get a W-2. So think about that. Now, that doesn't mean, and like I want this to come across the presentation. That doesn't mean quit your job today. That's not the advice. Okay, there is a way to have both, right? There is a way to create, like to start out maybe working for great companies and then branch off. You can do both at the same time. It doesn't have to be overnight. And we now live in a world where you are able to to communicate and touch and reach millions of people with like the social media technology, like than you've never had before ever. I mean, like to be able to access 300 million people in this country with like this like little phone thing is just, it's fascinating. So everything is there at your fingertips to be successful personally and then grow your wealth. Okay, so part of the title of the presentation was generational wealth, right? So generational wealth to me has a lot of different meanings, but the thing that it's called your legacy, right? What's your legacy? And your legacy could be your children, right? Your family, your friends. It could be the business you create. It could be philanthropic, right? I can create a charity, right? For like to help out more people than you could ever imagine than what you would do on your own, right? So generational wealth has a lot of meaning. One of the ways in which you can touch the lives of many people is through estate planning, okay? So estate planning is something as simple as just going to a lawyer's office and getting a will done, right? A lot of people now get their wills and trusts and estate planning done through their job. They're offering that service, I think, for like, a few dollars a month, and it's free when you do it. You pay the few dollars a month in the service for lawyer services, but then they get these wills and trusts done fairly inexpensively, right? Where, you could get an estate plan done. It would cost you $5,000, $10,000. I seen someone said, Jared, they're charging me $25,000 for an estate plan. Yep. So it gets that expensive. But you can do, and now companies are offering these services for pennies on the dollar, which is fantastic. Trusts are powerful tools. It's important to understand what a trust is. It's an entity created typically by you to own things. So I can own something, or I can put it inside of a trust and the trust owns it, right? So if anybody ever sued me, guess what they can't take? The money that I put inside of the trust. That's powerful. It's great for children, right? A lot of times for children, what happens is, God forbid anything happened to me, there's a certain way in which I want my wealth to be passed to those children. The trustee, the person that we essentially hire to manage the wealth inside the trust, will follow my wishes, even though I'm not here. And for many years moving forward, there's tax benefits to trusts and estate planning, right? We want to bring in powerful teams of people that really know this stuff. And then we have these, the other things that are typically done inside of a will are powers of attorney and medical directives. And the simple explanation of these things are a medical directive says something like this. If I am not able to make a medical decision for myself because of, like knocked out unconscious or something, right? Who do I trust to give the power to make medical decisions on my behalf when I can't make them for myself? That's what a medical directive would be. And power of attorney sort of comes in line with the same thing in terms of like, well, if I can't make a decision for myself because I'm like in an unhealthy state of mind, then who do I give the power to make financial decisions for me if I can't make it myself? And believe it or not, that's important, right? Could you imagine being in a situation where people need your money to like help themselves out because they're in dire straits, but the money won't be accessible because you're the only one allowed to make decisions, and that money doesn't become somebody else's till you're gone? That could be a problem, right? So like these things, it's kind of interesting. People think that estate planning is for wealthy people. Estate planning is supposed to be done for anyone who becomes 18 years old. Because once you're 18 years old, guess who you're not under the care of anymore? Your parents. So like you can't go into a hospital as a 19-year-old and think that your parents can make decisions for you. It's over at 18. So that's what these things are for. It's not for wealthy people, it's for everybody. So, and it's nice that a lot of companies are providing these services for low cost. That's generational wealth. These are the things you want to consider to preserve it, to grow it, and to the wealth building, it should be an enjoyable experience, right? It's not going to be lacking hard work. It's hard work, it's dedication, it's blood, sweat, and tears, it's delayed gratification, patience. It's all there. And, you can make the journey brutal or you can make it fun. I tend to lean towards, listen, if we're going to have to do it, let's make it a good time. And let's really think about the risks strategically and never put myself in a situation where I have to worry. I mean, it's not necessary. Oh, and the thing about worry, which is one really important thing. The reason why you bring professionals on is so they can do the worrying for you. I mean, that's it. I mean, like the people that I work with that pay me a lot of money to do my job, they can do it. They're smart enough, right? But it's like they're busy doing the things that matter to them. I'm just there because like they don't want to have to worry about it. They want that handled so they can spend more time doing the things that matter most to them. That's what this is all about.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and open up the floor for some questions. We've already gotten a couple in, and I will tell our attendees, if you have some questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. All right, someone asked, what's the best way to start a conversation with your spouse about money? It is a taboo subject in our family.
Well, the way I do it is there is no best way, that's for sure. You have to remember, I think one of the things that you have to, a great way to communicate with people is not come at them with what you want. It's invite them to share what matters most to them, right? You already know what you want. Let's hear what they want. And is there common ground that we can go on? So one of the ways in which I do that is I have the life planning process is a process of really going deep into what matters most to people, right? Their dreams, their goals, their wishes. So what I tell couples is then it's a series of questions, right? It's questions like, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do with your time? What would you spend the money on, right? But if you had, so that's one question. Another question would be, well, if you only had 5 years or 10 years left on this planet, how would you change your life? Like, what would you do differently if you knew that your time was limited? Those are not the same question, right? Totally different answers should come from that. Not necessarily, but like, you see my point. If money was no object and I had all the time in the world, what would I do? If I had limited time, what would I do? And so take those kinds of powerful questions, go in separate rooms, write down the answer, then come back in, and one reads, other doesn't interrupt, no talking while one's reading, and then you flip it, one's talking, no reading, and then you have a wholesome conversation. I mean, that's how I do it for people. It seems to work. Yeah, there'll be some arguing, I'm sure. I've been witness to it. To see husbands and wives fight about money right in front of me. But isn't that the beauty of being married and having a spouse?
All right. Well, I have another question here. What do we need to do up front to be able to trust the financial advisor and ensure that they have our best interest in mind? So how do you establish that trust with an advisor?
Sure. I think we spent like a whole 40 minutes doing this presentation, right, on a previous webinar. So we have an hour-long conversation on that. You're more than welcome to go see it. But like, you do have to do your due diligence, right? I mean, it's like there is, like, I don't know if many of you know this, that many financial professionals don't have, like, we're not allowed to have people like speak about how it was to work with us. I mean, it's like, we don't have like that kind of thing. So you want to, there's a couple of things you want. First of all, you want to interview. It's an interview, right? You want to ask a ton of questions. You want to have the questions written down. That's imperative. Why do you have to have the questions written down? It's because guess what? You're going to forget them all. Okay. The financial professional is going to ask you a bunch of questions. They're going to tell you a bunch of things, and you're going to have all this stuff jumbled up in your head. It needs to be written out. So lots of questions. I'm talking like 20 questions. I've sat with people and just literally went through 20 questions. That's the first thing. Second thing, you have to understand how they're compensated. That's really important, right? There's nothing wrong with any way in which a financial professional gets compensated. There's nothing wrong with it, but you just have to know how they get compensated, right? So that's all. Just know how they get compensated. There's nothing wrong if they sell you a product and get a commission. There's nothing wrong if they charge you a fee. It doesn't matter if the fee is charged hourly. It doesn't matter if it's charged annually. It doesn't matter, if they put you on a monthly, once a month fee. It doesn't matter if they charge you via their investments, right? They charge a fee based on investments. People will charge based on how much money you make per year, your income. Everybody has their own way, and they are incentivized financially to be compensated from the way in which they do it. As long as they're telling you that, and you're cool with it, you now know that if they're honest about it and really upfront and give you how much they get paid, and just there's nothing wrong with conflicts of interest if you know what the conflicts of interest are, right? So I just tell people, these are my conflicts. I want you to get this product and I'm going to get paid for it. Are you okay with that? Sure. It's if you don't get it, you're not going to hurt my feelings, right? But it's just, this needs to be this clear communication, right? And remember this, nothing's taboo, right? Nothing's taboo. Let's just be honest about how people get paid. So yeah, I think the questions, how they get paid, you want to know who they operate with. That's another important thing. Financial professionals are small individual people, right? That's all we are. And we communicate with different people and different families along the way. We need financial products to provide to you. You have to have them. A banking account is a financial product as much as a 401k plan is a financial product, as much as a piece of real estate is a financial product. So they're just products provided by bigger institutions. Who are the institutions they work with and why? And that's a great question, right? How do you provide me with insurance? How do you provide me with an investment? How do you give me advice on real estate? Where does this all come from? Who are the professionals you work with, right? Do you have a preferable CPA or a preferable lawyer that you work with? These are the great kinds of things that you want to ask to learn about the advisor. So yeah, I could get really deep into that.
Yeah, and I will say, I don't know if people understand that about that, not being able to have referrals or not referrals, but testimonials kind of thing.
Testimonials, that was the word.
Yes, because it's part of the regulations that financial advisors have to adhere to.
Right.
All right, here's another question, maybe a little bit outside of the scope of this webinar, but I'm going to throw it at you anyway. This person said, I've heard that an annuity trust setup can help with generational wealth. Can you pass it down to your grandkids and great grandkids? So I'm not sure what an annuity trust setup means, but maybe you can talk about trusts. And I don't know.
So annuity trust is a special kind of trust. You don't usually say it the way annuity trust. That's not the way you would word it, but well, I guess you could word it like that. Yeah, they're a powerful financial tool that can get wealth down to future generations. Yeah, there's a grant or retained annuity trust, all right? And so there's all different kinds of annuity trusts. They're powerful, they're excellent. That's how you get wealth down to those next generations, and you can use them while you're alive, which is really powerful, right? Can you imagine putting money in a trust, paying yourself while you're in retirement, and then what's left in the trust afterwards gets moved to the next generation? That's what trusts are for. And all along the way, how do I say this? Being strategic with your taxes all along the way, right? And protecting that money from people trying to sue you. Yeah, great. I just want people to understand trusts from the concept of there are so many variations of trust. I took special courses to learn how trusts work, and the course can't even get you to understand the tip of the iceberg on trust. Now, typically what you want to do is you want to work with an attorney that knows this stuff, lives and breathes it all day long. And what's more interesting about trust, every year we have a new tax code, or every 3 or 4 years a new administration comes in, and all the things that we did, all the good planning we did, gets totally transformed, and all your trust might or might not have to change based on what happened. It's the laws are always changing and evolving. So sometimes a strategy for a trust when you started it was great and strategic, and then you move on, and then it has to be revisited. And yeah, so there's a lot of things. You can do great things though with charity trust, annuity trust as well, charitable remainder trust. So there's ways in which you can help charities save on taxes and income and still not disinherit your family. I mean, it could get really, really powerful stuff, with trust. Yeah, great question.
And we have done some webinars about charitable giving, and also about trust, and also about annuity. It's not specifically about, maybe not specifically what you were saying, but definitely enough to get you started. So if you want to look at Advice Chasers recorded webinars, that's where they are. And then you had mentioned on the previous question that we had done a webinar about, ways to interview an advisor. That webinar is called The Best and Worst Questions to Ask When Choosing a Financial Advisor. And that was a really fun one. So again, if you go to our webinars and go into the recorded ones, you can find that easily on our website at advicechaser.com. All right, here's another question. How do you get comfortable with putting your money into a plan? Lots of people are uncomfortable with the idea of financial planning. How do you get over that hurdle?
I mean, how do I
There's a lot of fear. I think what I'm trying to address is, how do you deal with some of the emotional hurdles that have to deal with, okay, I'm going to make a plan for my money. I want to retire. I want to live well. But a lot of people, just even starting that conversation comes with a lot of trepidation.
I think there's also a little bit of you're going to expose yourself, as they say, to somebody else taking a look at what's really going on in your financial life, right? And I don't know if any of you had a physical by a doctor before, but I'll tell you, they make you take all your clothes off down to your socks and say, we are professionals that are we understand that, this is a big step. And when you interview somebody, try to get a sense of their love and caring and who they are, right? Do they care for their people? And they will handhold you through this journey. And yeah, you're going to have to share some things that are not good, but a proper financial plan takes into consideration any risk that is going on in the world, right? You don't put all your money into the stock market and not have emergency money, right? You don't put your money in, you don't walk around. A financial professor is going to teach you to make sure that you don't walk around without insurances that will protect you if something went wrong, right? So a good planner is going to make sure that they keep you out of that space of being fearful. But if you're in that space of fear, I bet a lot is not getting done. So you're probably in a worse state by not talking to somebody than, just stepping into the fear and go and interviewing people. And there's nothing wrong with interviewing people. Start there. I mean, you're interviewing them, so you should be the person of power, right? So.
All right, I have a couple more questions come in
Sure.
here. So I'd heard about a type of life insurance that can be used to pass wealth to the next generation.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. I think what they're referring to is a permanent life insurance versus a life insurance that is term. So just, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you die prematurely, okay, having a term insurance policy is a powerful tool to have. But most of us are going to live a long time, and that basic policy I start off with will be gone, right? So a permanent insurance policy that follows you through the end of your days at age 90 or 100, okay, is a way to pass on wealth to the next generation. And what's so powerful about that is, think about this. If I have a life insurance policy that follows me to the end of my days, what does it mean I can do with the money that I've earned myself? Because I could spend it all, right? If I spend all my money and there's a guaranteed death benefit when I pass away, well, that's powerful, right? Because I get to spend all my money and still pass on wealth to my loved ones. That's called permanent insurance. And I think we've even done some presentations on that.
All right, and coming at you with another insurance question. Are full/permanent life insurance policies the best way to pass on wealth, or are these so expensive it's better to select term and then save and invest the premiums, which I am assuming what you would have spent on the premium for a permanent life insurance? Yeah, that's definitely
So
it depends, I'm assuming.
It depends, right? And so the answer is, it's a great question. It's a common question, right? So think of it like this. They're not expensive. Let me say it. I want to say it a little differently. Okay. So, and we've done a presentation on this, but life insurance is an excellent way to transfer wealth. I mean, that's what it's for, isn't it? It's a wealth transfer vehicle for sure, right? So if it's with you forever, you now have a tool that is great for transferring wealth, period, right? That's like obvious, okay? For a permanent life insurance policy, you have to come out with more dollars out of your pocket in order to achieve the amount of life insurance you need, right? So more dollars out, okay? However, do you lose the dollars permanently by putting it into the permanent insurance? The answer is no, not necessarily. Do I have access to those dollars in the future? The answer is yes. The dollars you put in are accessible in the future. Well, if my dollars I put them in are accessible, does that mean it was expensive? No, it means you have money there in the future. So it was expensive, right? I don't say that I put my money in the stock account and the money grew over time, that it cost me a whole bunch of money to invest in the stock market, right? So it's the same concept. Now, the question becomes, which is a great question, if I would have not put those dollars into the insurance policy and had I put it somewhere else, what would those dollars do? So there's a mathematical sort of, we can make assumptions, but we don't know the future, but how much money would I have in two buckets, right? Typically, okay, if you were going to put your money into something, wouldn't you want to put the money into something that's going to grow more than something else? The answer would be yes. So if you put your money somewhere else, most likely the money is going to grow more in that something else, right? That's the select term, and then put it in, invest into, let's say, the stock market. So 9 times out of 10, there's going to be more money in the stock market than you would have if you put in the insurance policy. But why would the insurance policy be good? Well, does the stock market go straight up? No, right? And that's why you want to have multiple financial tools at your, remember we talked about that in the presentation. I want to have money in a lot of different things, right? So when the stock market loses 40, 50% like it did 3 years ago in COVID, did the insurance policy you put money into look pretty attractive? Yes, it's doing better than the stock market. Can I use that money for some strategy? Yes. If you like the way that sounds, that thinking, then you need to do your homework on insurance and if it's appropriate for you for permanent. If you're like, it doesn't matter what the stock market does to me, I really love the stock market, then put it in the stock market and use term insurance. You know, if you buy a piece of real estate, instead of buying, you know, the real estate's gonna be of value sometime in the future, right? Real estate has value in the future as well. So there's like so many different ways of looking at it. The key is not what's better than this, what's better than that. That's nonsense. There's nothing better. Right? You need to be educated on all the different aspects of every tool product out there. Now that you have the knowledge of what everything is, then you say, I see myself a little bit here. I see myself here. I see myself here. But you're doing it based on knowledge and education, not which is better. Because I can make an argument for what's better or worse in any given situation, right? They're all variable, right? It's just how do you see yourself? And the landscape of financial products and tools and services is it's immeasurable, right? So, and the other thing, nobody knows the future. If I knew what the future had in store for me, I know exactly which products to use at what time. But the mere fact that nobody knows the future, and PhDs and CFAs sit there on national television telling us where they think it's going to go, and they're all wrong, all of them, that tells me you better start thinking about your finances in every possible angle, right? And then you follow basic rules, basic guidelines. Yeah, sure. You're going to give up money if you make one decision versus another, right? I'm okay with giving up some money for something else, right? Maybe a peace of mind. Maybe it's a guaranteed income for life, right? I'll give up a few thousand for the safety of a guaranteed income. Maybe you're just like, no, I like riding things out. I like the ebbs and flows of things. So you don't use those things, but you know that when the stock market's down and that's volatile, you have to behave in a certain way. Maybe you have a lot more money in a checking and savings account than that person does. It's not about good or bad or right or wrong, what's better than worse. It's like, how do you behave in any possible situation? And most of us financial professionals have been through them all, right? Like I know what it's like to go through 07, 09. I know what it was like going through, the COVID thing. Like, and I know what it's going to be like to go through the next things. So yeah, that was a long answer. Sorry.
That's all right. And that's a good one to end on. We want to thank everyone for being here, and we want to thank JR for being part of our webinar series today. I want to thank the organizations that have made this webinar possible today. We've had a couple questions about if we'll be providing a replay of this event. Yes, we will be sending that out in about a day. So look to your email soon with a link to the replay of that event. You're welcome to share that with friends and family. We also post it on our website as well. And so go ahead and look at that if you're interested in more of our recordings. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. Find out more by going to advicechaser.com and clicking on the link to find an advisor. Well, once again for Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you at another webinar soon. Goodbye, folks.